Coming up tonight, World Health Organization warns public of leptospirosis, giving more legal services to members of the public, and calls to declare Fiji as shark sanctuary. Good evening, I'm Sandra Sam. Dr. Eric Nilas from the World Health Organization says leptospirosis can be spread whilst walking in pools of water or mud that are contaminated by the urine of animals. He says although it can be contracted from one person to another, but the situation is exceedingly unusual.
For those areas that were badly affected by the recent floods, particularly those in from sub-rural and rural communities, are at risk of contracting leptospirosis. World Health Organization representative Dr. Eric Nilas says it is important for people in the sub-rural and rural communities to wear protective clothing and avoid pools of water since there is a high risk of being infected by leptospirosis. Dr. Eric added this should not only be limited for sub-rural and rural areas, but it should also be applied generally to the Western Division.
Leptospirosis you cannot transmit from one person. You can, but it's very rare to transmit from one person to another person. Typically you contract or you get the infection when you walk in pools of water or mud or flood water that has been contaminated usually by the urine of animals, rats, but also mongoose and pigs and cattle and dogs. So although you can pass it on from one person to another, that's exceedingly unusual, and almost always it's transmitted by walking, typically by walking in these contaminated, waterlogged grounds.
Meanwhile, the Health Ministry is working around the clock in flood-affected areas, providing clinical intervention, environmental intervention, and awareness to prevent further spread of this disease.
Government will now provide more access to justice to people around the country. The announcement was made this morning by the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Sayed-Khaiyum.
Mr. Sayed-Khaiyum says previously there used to be only more lip service done and very little practical work, but they are trying to prevent this by improving their services to the people around the country.
What has happened yesterday through the approval of Cabinet, we have increased the amount of money that legal aid will now get from the funds that are generally divided from the interest that's earned on trust account monies. So previously, as we had amended only a few years ago, we had given 50% to legal aid, 25% to Judiciary Fund, 10% to the Independent Legal Services Commission, 10% to the Legal Practitioners Fund, and 5% to the Fidelity Fund. What has happened after yesterday's approval, legal aid will now get 65%, and 10% to the Judiciary Fund, and all the others will remain constant.
With this money, new legal aid office will be opened in Tavua, Singatoka and Rakiraki, so people can access this service. The new Family Law Amendment Decree 2012 was approved by Cabinet this week.
It's a modern facility. We have provision for breastfeeding mothers to go to a particular area, because as you know, a lot of the mothers go there for child maintenance claims or custody issues, and we want to expand these services available through Legal Aid Commission to give actual and tangible access to justice to these people who require legal aid assistance.
A recent study into shark dive tourism in Fiji is suggesting the need to declare a shark sanctuary if the country is to sustain its multi-million-dollar industry. During a research carried out by researchers from the Australian Institute of Science, it has been found that the value of shark-related diving contributed $42.2 million to the Fiji economy in 2010.
Manager of Global Shark Conservation with the Pew Environment Group, Jill Hepp, says it shows a healthy shark population is important to both the ocean ecology and Fiji's economy. Hepp added in places where there is no legal protection for sharks, the shark population rapidly declines. According to researchers, almost 30% of shark populations around the world are threatened or near threatened with extinction. Scientists have shown that up to 73 million sharks are killed every year to support the shark fin trade, primarily for shark fin soup. Jill Hepp says what the study shows is that sharks alive in an ocean are much more valuable than sharks dead and in a bowl of soup. Government is considering protecting its shark populations, and it's hoped the survey will help it in its decision.
Coming up after the break, Women Ministry targets potential women candidates for 2014 elections. And Fiji Festival in US aimed at promoting unity.